everyone, and welcome to Cellular Healing TV. I'm your host, Meredith Dykstra, and this is episode number 152. We have our resident cellular healing specialist, Dr. Dan Pompa, on the line, of course. And today we welcome special guest, Dr. Glenn Livingston. We have a really fun topic for you guys today. We're recording now during the holiday season. You probably aren't listening to this show. You're probably listening to this show a few weeks after the holidays. But Dr. Glenn is an expert on overeating, binge eating, and all kinds of food issues that a lot of us struggle with. So this is going to be a really important topic today we're going to discuss. And before we jump in, let me tell you a little bit more about Dr. Glenn. Glenn Livingston, PhD, is a veteran psychologist and was the longtime CEO of a multi-million-dollar consulting firm, which has serviced several Fortune 500 clients in the food industry. You may have seen him or his company's previous work, theories, and research in major periodicals like the New York Times, the Los Angeles Times, the Chicago Sun-Times, the Indiana Star-Ledger, the New York Daily News, American Demographics, and other major media outlets. You may also have heard him on ABC, WGN, and or CBS Radio or UPN TV. Disillusioned by what traditional psychology had to offer overweight and or food-obsessed individuals, Dr. Livingston spent several decades researching the nature of binging and overeating via work with his own patients and a self-funded research program with more than 40,000 participants. More important, however, was his own personal journey out of obesity and food prison to a normal, healthy weight and a much more lighthearted relationship with food. Welcome, Dr. Glenn Livingston, to Cellular Healing TV.
Well, thank you very much. It's a delight to be here, and I'm looking forward to talking to you and your readers about, and your listeners, to learn anything that's going to be helpful to them for the new year.
Yeah. Well, look, we thank you so much. Timing couldn't be better this time of year. Is we know that so many people, this is the time of year they just pack it on, right? And the older they get, the harder it becomes supposedly to take off. But I've got to jump into your story because obviously that's where your passion came from, and so many people that we have on this show, it's from pain to purpose, and including myself. So tell us that. Start there.
Okay, well, that's the most embarrassing part, so we might as well get it over with.
And that's our goal here, Dr. Glenn, is we just want to embarrass people.
There you go. Well, I suppose when I was younger, I could have been diagnosed with what today you'd call exercise bulimia. And what that means is that I ate an awful lot and I exercised it off. I didn't like to put my finger down my throat. That was always kind of aberrant to me, but I figured out that as 6'4" fairly muscular guy, that I could eat more or less whatever I wanted to if I worked out enough. And the problem was that as I got into graduate school and started to have patients, and when I was married and I had responsibilities, I just couldn't make 2 or 3 hours a day to work out all the time. And so I started to get heavy because I found that it wasn't easy to adjust the food the way that I really wanted to. And I was a real eater. I could eat 2 pizzas. I could go into a delicatessen and dislodge my jaw. I had a real thing for chocolate. And it was something to kind of joke about at that age. And because I'm tall, I wore the weight reasonably well. So I wasn't having a lot of people telling me that I looked horrible. I did have a lot of doctors yelling at me for my triglycerides and telling me, I was going to have a heart attack in my 40s or maybe sooner. And I had bad blood lipids and cholesterol and everything like that. And more importantly, I was very obsessed with the food. And so I found that as I took progressively more responsibilities in my life, like I would be sitting and working with couples who, were in the midst of some very serious issues. And I couldn't be 100% present because I was thinking about when am I going to get to eat again? When can I get to the deli? When can I do X, Y, and Z? And that bothered me because my dedication to being a psychologist always was first and foremost in my life. I come from a family of 17 psychotherapists and psychologists, and if you say Dr. Livingston in a restaurant, we all turn around. It's pretty funny. And so coming from that family, I went the psychological route to try to figure it out. I was very successful in my practice. I was very successful as a consultant, so I had a lot of resources, and I went to some of the best psychologists and psychiatrists, and I went to Overeaters Anonymous, and I learned a lot about the psychology of eating, and I learned a lot about the personal choices I was making. As a matter of fact, I even developed a study, and we wound up having 40,000 people go through it over the course of several years. Not quite as impressive as it sounds because it was online, but still. And we figured out that, for example, people that are really craving chocolate tend to be experiencing some sort of loneliness or brokenheartedness in love. And so I really thought when I saw those correlations that I was onto something. And I dug really deep inside my own soul to figure out, well, where does that come from for me? And I kind of figured out that my dad was scared about going to Vietnam, and my mother was overwhelmed that maybe he was going to go. And so she couldn't quite take care of me the way that she should have when I was really little, no fault of her own. And she gave me chocolate, or she gave me Bosco. She used to keep a little bottle on the floor. And if I was crying and I needed her and she couldn't be there, she would point me to the chocolate. And so I developed a lifelong pattern of running to chocolate when I felt lonely. And that's a very soulful and intriguing thing to understand, except it didn't cure the problem. Because what would happen, and this is what I found with my patients also, what would happen would be, there'd be this little voice inside of me that would say, you know what, Glenn, you're right. Your mama didn't love you enough. And until you figure out how to fill those big holes inside of you and stop being so lonely, you're just going to have to keep on eating that chocolate. And you know what? Chocolate's kind of like a vegetable anyway, because it grows in a cocoa bean, and a cocoa bean is a plant. And he would say all these crazy things to justify no matter what I did, right? And so some of the other interesting things, as long as we're talking about that, are people who are craving salty, crunchy things tend to be stressed at work. So there are a lot of correlations like that. But what I would find is that there was this mediating voice. And even though you could trace food preferences and you could find the patterns and you could learn an awful lot about yourself, and I think that we all should be compassionate to ourselves, and those are things we should figure out and we should learn and figure out how to fix the loneliness and the stress in our life. It's not really the solution, in my estimation, to the food problem. The solution has to do with addressing that crazy voice inside of you.
Right.
And so unfortunately, it took me until I was about 40. I'm 52 now. But it took me until I was about 40 to figure that out. And I was about 260 pounds. I'm about 200 pounds now. And I ran across some alternative addiction literature. The 12 steps were fascinating, but they didn't really work for me. And I came to understand that they aren't really scientifically backed up. As a matter of fact, the only two controlled studies seem to suggest that they're either at parity or worse than doing nothing at all. And that kind of frightened me. So I looked very aggressively into the alternative research, and I came across a book called Rational Recovery. And he's fairly protective of his work, so I don't like to say too much about it. But suffice it to say that he was talking about this crazy voice inside of you as the really primary cause of addiction. And he developed a methodology for separating from that voice. And essentially what it says is that, look, that voice is the lizard brain. That voice is our survival drive. And unfortunately, our survival drive has made a mistake. It's gotten corrupted by alcohol or drugs. And he really works with the black and white addictions. And everybody else is telling you, you need to love yourself well. And so when you have an addictive craving, everybody's saying, well, where is the loneliness? Where is the isolation? Where is the stress? How can I love that inner-rooted child back to health? But he said, that's really the wrong approach. It's more like caging a rabid animal. It's more like getting control of the lizard brain, which seems to overtake us during addiction. Whereas, all of our goals, right? You can interrupt me whatever you want to, by the way. But all of our goals and aspirations and everything that we think of as ourselves, love and meaning and relationship and hugging your kids and going to school and losing weight, those all live in the, higher brains, the mammalian brain, the neocortex. Now, thankfully, if you were to look at and you could do a much better job with this than I could, I'm sure I'm bastardizing this, but if you look at a map of the brain, the lizard brain is the earlier evolved part of the neuroanatomy, and where we live is later evolved, and it's actually superior to it, able to control it. And so all of these notions of powerlessness and that there's really no defense against an addictive impulse, it's just not true. It's not true. It's fine to have a spiritual pursuit, and you should do that to fill out your life, but it has nothing to do with, can you control this addiction. And so I really had to study that carefully and make a lot of modifications to deal with food, because whereas Jack Trippy was working with the black and white addictions where you can actually quit, food is something where you've got to take the lion out of the cage a couple of times a day and walk it around the block, right? And so I had to figure out, how do you draw this really clear line? And so the methodology has to do with being able to hear that crazy voice, which is coming from the addictive part of ourselves, from that lizard brain. And in order to hear that, you have to very clearly define what's healthy eating and what's addictive eating. And so that led me to a whole series of insights having to do with thinking differently than our culture tells us we should think about food. Do you want me to pause for any reason to?
Yeah. I mean, I think pausing right there. I mean, I know myself, and many of my doctors watch this program too, and we would all say we have so many of these clients and patients that are stuck right there, right? They know they're doing emotional eating, addictive eating. They know that. You know, we make decisions in that primitive brain, is what we call it, right? It's like, and you know, so therefore, because of that, it's so hard to fight. So right now, you're speaking to thousands of people that battle this right here. So just in review, you know, this can absolutely come from different traumas in our life. I had an episode. I had someone. It was one of my friends, and my son identified this. You know, he had this emotional thing happen in his life, right? Or at this moment, right? And it was girl related, whatever, but not the point. But she made him a bunch of cookies and took the cookies over to him. And my son said, no, wait a minute. It's like, that explains everything about him, you know, because now he was severely overweight. Now it's meeting my son, he had lost a lot of weight, right? You know, my son taught him things, but you know, he still struggles with that emotional addictive eating, you know, no doubt. Unrealized, I'm sure that happened throughout his life. Mom made cookies every time life got a little hard, right? It's like, or whatever. And so now this thing of struggling in emotional times, he reaches for the cookies because his brain says, well, that worked. I felt better. Right? He associates it with love. I mean, so that's kind of what you're saying. I just put a story to it. Is that true? And then we want to know the solution. What the heck's the solution?
Right. And so yes, there is that etiology, there is that development of the story and the associations. However, every day we can choose to remake ourselves. And if we, the solution that I found, I'm not saying this is the only solution, but the solution that I found is not really to delve deeply into what was the emotional trauma and then.
Yeah, you said that. That's what interests me. Yeah, who cares? Yeah. But here's the solution.
So the solution in your son's friend's case would be something like, well, what would healthy behavior around cookies be? When specifically do you want to eat them? When specifically do you not want to eat them? And don't feel any judgment from me. This is totally up to you. Where you want. I mean, you could talk to your doctor, you could talk to a nutritionist, but let's say you decide, I will only ever want to eat cookies on the weekends again. And you know that if you only have cookies on the weekends, it would be under control for you. For whatever reason, that's a balance for you. Well, now you have a really clear line in the sand. And you'll notice that you could even say, I'll never eat cookies during the calendar week again, during a weekday again. You'll notice that that's a very, very strong statement. And it's almost heresy to say something like that. Say, I will never do this or I'll never do that. Because what our culture will tell you, what the addiction treatment specialist will tell you, is that, well, you're setting that person up for a binge. That perfectionism is a setup because eventually they're going to screw up and they're going to binge. And I think that's a big problem. Now, I do think that people that pursue a perfect rule, when they make a mistake, they have a tendency to castigate themselves and get involved with the guilt, and that can make a binge more likely. But if you look at the psychology of winners, let's take an archer, right? An archer focuses on the bullseye of the target, knows exactly where that bullseye is, takes every ounce of their being and poises towards the bullseye, sees the arrow going into the target before they release it, and then they release it. If the arrow doesn't go into the bullseye, then they do the same thing, and I'm so sorry about that. If the arrow doesn't go into the bullseye, they do the exact same thing again, and they refocus with determination. And knowing where the bullseye is 100% allows them to purge all that doubt and insecurity from their mind. Because if there's something that comes into their head and say, well, you might not hit the bullseye this time, and just see, you know what, why don't you aim a little to the side? Aim a little to the side of the bullseye, that's better, because you're never going to get to the bullseye. That's not the psychology of winning. Psychology of winning is see the goal with 100% clarity. And so I say,
I have to say that's a great analogy, because if you know anything, and maybe some of our viewers and listeners don't, but the ability to hit that target really is your certainty, your visualization, of just knowing it's going there. I mean, it really is. It's whether it's throwing a dart or not, it is that visualization. For 1 second, you visualize something else, it's not going into that target.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm with you so far. I'm with you so far. So keep going.
Yeah, and so I think that there are two separate mindsets required before the shot and after the shot. After the shot, it's necessary to be reflective, analytical, and kind to yourself. You wouldn't say, I missed the target. I am an effing idiot. I am never going to hit the target. There's something wrong with me. I might as well just give up and aim all the way to the side, right? But that's what people can do with food. So in our culture, when they say go for progress and not perfection, have guidelines and not rules, I think they're telling you to shoot at a blurry target, and I don't think that really works. I think you aim at the center of the target with determination, and you simultaneously know that after the shot, if you happen to make a mistake, that you're going to be forgiving, you're going to figure out what you did wrong, maybe the wind was going this way or that way, you're going to make adjustments, and you're going to aim for it again. So I would coach your son's friend to say, okay, if you say you never want to eat cookies during the week again, then you can say you're never going to eat cookies during the week again. That's your bullseye. That's your bullseye. So that's the first modification that I had to make to the way that things were done today.
Okay, so we want to hear more ideas, but basically then what you're doing is you're tapping into the conscious mind, the intellectual mind, to basically intellectualize it. I mean, you're saying, look, I know if I did this, it's healthy, and darn it, that's my goal, and I'm going to hit that goal. So, I mean, it's simply making an intellectual decision, saying this is what I'm going to do. Am I right so far?
Yeah, that's a part of it. The enforcement of it is more emotional, but you do want to use your best thinking and your reason in order to determine where the bullseye is, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We actually have something I call diet variation. We talk about why, purposely increasing your carbs 1 or 2 days a week can actually be a strategy that actually helps you, by the way. And now we're talking about healthy carbs, usually not cookies. But, point being, I mean, if you're going to do it, you could have a very good reason why doing it on this day a week would actually help you. And so because there's a really good scientific reason for that, that helps the process. It helps your brain be more determined to do it or succeed in doing it. I mean, is that what you're saying?
Yes. Well, for me, it's largely about clarity. For me, it's largely about having clarity. I think people walk around with a fuzzy goal, and so they don't quite know where they're going, and they wind up someplace else. Like my grandfather used to say.
So okay, so I mean, here's the key then. You're not saying I'm not going to eat cookies. Dang it, I'm just not going to eat cookies. I'm only going to eat cookies on Saturday.
I mean, for some people, never is easier than sometimes. But I purposely leave that example.
My point is, it could be I'm only eating cookies once a month. My point is it's specific, whatever it is.
Whatever it is, it's yes.
Okay.
Because if there's ambiguity, your lizard brain will barrel through and find the teeniest, tiniest hole in your rule. And the guideline I use, I don't know if you studied research methodology, but there's something called an operational definition. And when they're trying to measure squishy things like love or intimacy or something like that. What they did is they would get 10 people to rate the level of love or intimacy using this scale, and they'd see to what degree they agree with one another. And the guideline I use for this work is that if there were 10 people that followed you around all month long, using your rule, would they all agree that you followed it or not? And I think if 10 people followed your son's friend around and your son's friend said, my rule is I'm only ever going to eat cookies on the weekends again, these 10 people would agree at the end of the month, because it's real easy to see, did your son's friend eat cookies on the weekend or not, right? As opposed to, I'm only ever going to eat when I'm hungry and I'm always going to stop when I'm full. And that's a good guideline. That's a good thing to do. But it's not never binge again. It's not this game that I'm talking about, because you can't measure it objectively from the outside and people could never agree. Does it make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. And because they would be saying, well, there's so many rationalizations involved there that you would arguably, at the end of the day, they probably would tell you that they always just ate till they were full, but really they didn't. So you can't measure it. Unmeasurable. Once a week, once a month, that's measurable. Got it.
Exactly. And so when I guide people about, let me just finish the construction of a set of rules. When I guide people about that, I tell them there are 4 categories of rules. There's things you'll never do, things you'll always do, things you will do conditionally. And the rule that we just came up with was a condition, because it had only the weekends again. And things that you're going to do in an unrestricted way, because I think it's good for people to know that there are some things they can do without restriction so that they don't walk around feeling starving. Okay, so that's just like a very basic template, and we can talk about where we can find some more templates to use later on if you want to. But the enforcement of this becomes kind of like a game. And remember, it's more like capturing and caging a rabid animal. So I'd like people to give their inner lizard brain, their destructive food self, a name. And it should be a name of something that they're going to feel a little disgusted with and superior to. You're actually going to cultivate a sense of contempt and disgust, because you're going to need that emotion at the moment of impulse to jump back up into your right brain, okay? So I call mine my inner pig. And this doesn't sound like a very sophisticated psychologist. I call it my inner pig. I call it my pig. And I call the things that my pig says pig squeal. And I call the things that my pig is squealing for pig slop. And I don't eat pig slop, and I don't let farm animals tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And I know this is not what you were expecting from a sophisticated psychologist with my credentials.
Yeah, I get why this would work. I understand how the predictive brains are predictably irrational. I get where you're going with it. Go. I get it.
You get it, yeah. Because at that moment of impulse, you need something really primitive. What's happening is the lizard brain really thinks on 3 levels when it sees something in the environment. And the lizard brain sees a stimulus that says, do I kill it? Do I mate with it, or do I eat it? That's how the lizard brain is operating. And that's the level at which you have to react to the lizard brain to get your thinking back in place. Because when the lizard brain is kind of powerfully activated, it pushes all this out of the way. And you need to be kind of like an alpha wolf that snarls at a challenger and goes, I will effing kill you. I don't listen to pigs and farm animals tell me what to do. I will effing kill you. Get back in your cage, right? That's the level of emotional response that you need to get those microseconds and say, wait a minute, chocolate's not a vegetable, or, wait, it's Thursday, I can't have a cookie on Thursday, because I never eat cookies during the week. And that's why I'm 200 pounds instead of 260 pounds right now. That's what's worked for me. It's worked for hundreds and hundreds of people. There are, a number of other elements to making it work. It's a little bit of an art. But that's what I did, and that's what Never Binge Again is about. I call the book Never Binge Again because I think if you're aiming squarely for that archery target, you're going to say, I'm never going to make a mistake again. Because admitting the possibility of a mistake is admitting that little bit of doubt into your mind. And I think it's, yeah. And so I define a binge as one step off of your carefully constructed food plan.
Yeah. Listen, knowing what I know about the brain, how the brain works, I can see this being an effective strategy. Obviously, you've proven it. I mean, tell us a little bit about, okay, yeah, great. I mean, it was 40,000 people online, but what did you get from that study that you did?
Oh, well, okay. So I have not proven this scientifically. You know, I have not had the resources and time to prove that this is scientifically what is necessary to happen. Of course, that's in my plans as things are growing. This is now the bestseller for eating disorders on Amazon, so we're starting to get some attention, and we're going to be moving in that direction. But at the time I did that 40,000 person study, I was looking at the relationship between food preferences, particularly those things people felt that they couldn't control, and personality. So I had a personality questionnaire. I had a questionnaire about the different types of addictive foods that people were having trouble with. We did a lot of factor analysis, and we came up with these core set of insights. But like I said, it was kind of in the wrong direction. I mean, it was a valid study. We had a lot of press for the study way back when, but it wasn't really answer the problem. It was just really interesting.
Cool. Meredith, I know you have some questions. I'm gonna.
All right. I always have lots of questions, and I love this topic too, because something I've definitely personally dealt with a lot in my life was, overeating, emotional eating, things of that nature. So we can continue that more, but I just kind of wanted to get your opinion too on rigid diets and things like that. I'm guessing that you're not a fan of strict diets and people kind of following kind of a specific regime, but being a little bit looser about it.
Well, it depends upon the person. What I am absolutely against is over-restriction. I haven't seen the scientific proof yet, but I firmly believe that there's some evolutionary mechanism in our brains that says, if you go through famine, you must go through feast when food is available. And I've talked to so many binge eaters who've talked to me about their history of dieting and how thin they used to be. And I'll tell them, well, I think that's why you're having this trouble now. And they'll tell me that it's almost like someone's putting a gun to their head and saying, you have to keep eating, you have to keep eating even if you're full. And I think that that's an element of the lizard brain that is loading up on calories and nutrition because it's anticipating another famine. And so I think part of overcoming binge eating is a regularity of nutrition and calories. And the particular diet that people use, I have people who have just use behavioral rules, like I will always get up from the table and walk around outside for 2 minutes before I go back for seconds. And everything is really about stimulating mindful eating, but they draw these lines in the sands to make sure that they are mindful eating. I have other people who say, I will never eat sugar or flour or chocolate or candy, and they have a long list of things that they just never eat. I don't really see a problem with that unless the things that they are never eating are really essential nutrients, but usually they're industrial foods. And all the years that I worked for the food industry, the biggest thing I learned was there's a lot of money in putting a lot of calories in a small space, getting a really pretty package, and spending billions of dollars to advertise that it's good for you. So I think that's how we all got kind of messed up. I mean, there were no chocolate bars in the Savannah. There were no potato chips in the Savannah. If people want to get those out of their diet, I don't see any reason why they can't get this out of their diet. If people want to enjoy them once in a while, I think it's an artifact of society that's not getting in trouble, and what's the big deal? But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was just gonna say, I have to admit, I mean, people my clients even that have had eating disorders, when they say, I'm just never eating that food again, I find that they actually succeed, in doing that. I mean, and they literally have never eaten it again. I mean, it's almost like the alcoholics that succeed, right? It's like, I'm just never doing it again, and then they don't. But if they did once, then they're probably back on the wagon. So
there's this phenomenon where I run into people who try 17 different ways to conditionally control something. I'm only going to have chocolate on the weekends. I'm only going to have it after a big hike. I'm only going to have it when I'm with my wife. I'm only going to have it after a meal with some type of a glycemic slowdown. And for a year or two, they go through all these different permutations, and it just keeps kicking their butt, and eventually say, you know what? It would just feel like such a relief not to have this at all, and it works so much better for them. And there are a lot of people like that. And then
you're right. I'm sure it's not for everybody, but there are people like that. Go ahead, Meredith. You had something.
Yeah. So what do you think about specific diets? I'm curious about like the paleo diet or the ketogenic diet. Do you have any thoughts on that? Because that can really affect, like, when you're eating so much good fat in your diet, it can really affect your satiety, and which can really decrease binges and cravings, I've found personally. So what are your thoughts there?
Well, so I'm weak on medical knowledge. I do read an awful lot about nutrition, and I kind of know things, so I have opinions about it, but I've taken the position that I'll help you with any diet. If it's nutritionally complete and sound, then I'll help you with any diet. I will tell you that I tend to get two camps of people that want to work with me, or read my stuff and hang out in my forums and stuff. One camp are the paleo people, and they do very well. They tend to need to be really strict, I find. I find that when the paleo people are moving into like processed sugars and grains and trying to do that conditionally, it doesn't seem to work for them. I don't really know why. I think maybe it triggers a carbohydrate craving that's just too strong, and they're not going to meet it with, they're not going to have enough fruit to have it or something. I don't know. And then I get the whole foods plant-based people. And if you read my book, it's no secret I'm a little bit more on the whole foods plant-based side myself. But those are the two camps that I get, and I try not to judge the specific diets that people are going through, because I'm not a medical doctor or a nutritionist.
Yeah, no, and I don't think that's your point, because in any of those groups, you have someone who fails, or, you know, because they end up binging, or have, you know, does some emotional eating. So, you know, I mean, it's, yeah, your point is, let's stop that, and then you'll be successful at whatever your diet seems to be working for you, or you like, for whatever reason.
What I do find is that whether or not you include animal foods, that the emphasis on whole foods and the elimination of industrial processed foods tends to correlate with success. So, you know, I don't think we're meant to have these hyper-palatable foods that industry has created.
Look, I agree. I mean, when you look at what these processed foods are, I mean, there's even chemicals in them that stimulate dopamine receptors. I mean, come on. I mean, you know, I mean, it's like saying I'm going to take these drugs and not get addicted. You know, so you're right. I mean, if you're still eating processed food, you're asking for trouble. It's, you know, highly addictive. Pure sugar is highly addictive. So, you know, shifting to just wholesome food is step one.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I talk about, Dr. Glenn, is diet variation, you know, meaning that I don't need to make the argument that this is the perfect diet for everybody. You know, we use, and I teach how to use ketosis, how to use what I call a cellular healing diet, no grains, and, you know, different diets, moving in and out of different diets actually creates adaptation at the cellular level that's amazing. So I believe if you look at every ancient culture on the planet, they ate different diets at different times for multiple different reasons. For whatever reason, they ran out of certain foods, seasonal changes, droughts, environmental pressures, what's growing, what's not. I mean, I can go through many reasons of, you know, different reasons why ancient cultures were forced into diet changes. You know, just even getting sick of certain foods because they had to eat it in the winter, and now they have different, more carbohydrate foods in the summer. You know, so point being is that I think, you know, getting away from this is the diet that everyone should be on isn't the argument. But I love what you're saying, because I don't care what diet you're on. There's emotional reasons, primitive reasons that we all fail. We're all pulled into these bad foods, and you're giving us a strategy on how to deal with it. So,
but it's very interesting what you're saying about, so you advise periodic bouts of ketosis in order to trim the body fat, and then varying the diet so that you're not in long-term ketosis. Is that what you're recommending?
You know, I mean, I kind of fell into it. I have a love for studying, you know, ancient cultures and, you know, history there. But, you know, we put people into ketosis, which you're forcing the cell to burn fat, right, as its primary source of energy. So how could someone not lose weight? You know, but yet there'll be people that go into ketosis and they don't lose weight. Matter of fact, worse than that, they don't even get into ketosis, and yet they're eating 20, 30 grams of carbohydrates a day. Well, how is that possible? Well, the mitochondria is that broken. So I would take them out and just say, okay, let's go back to the diet we had you on. By the way, wasn't working for weight loss either. Diet, all of a sudden they start losing weight and they even feel better. Well, how's that possible? What changed? I don't know. And then, okay, let's do that for 3 months, and then let's go back into ketosis. Now, all of a sudden, we put them back in, and all of a sudden, they go into ketosis, and they even lose more weight. So there was something about
you fix the mitochondria
that actually became the magic, and now we have a group of doctors doing this. So even this, people can be in ketosis for a long time. Their insulin starts getting so low that their body takes on almost a starvation thing, and they start to gain weight or this weird odd fat around their belly, or they stop losing weight, either one. So then we throw in these carbohydrate days, healthy carbs though, more fruit, maybe more berries, whatever it is, maybe more potatoes, sweet potatoes, root vegetables, something like that. And all of a sudden, boom, they start kicking weight loss again, just by randomly throwing in some days. So any type of variation creates some type of adaptation that gets the body more efficient at the cellular level of using.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Right.
So anyway, it's part of a strategy that we use. I mean, not just for weight loss. It's a part of a strategy we use for fixing the mitochondria. Even putting people in feast and famine cycles, we fast them for periods of time, and then we, bring them out of fast. And then again, the feast cycles where we have those days where we eat more, all healthy, whole foods. I agree with you. Right. And then we have the days, even once a week where we fast them. So feast and famine cycles is what ancient cultures did. It forces adaptation. Bad cells die. We always say bad cells don't adapt. Good cells adapt. And, we just interviewed Thomas Seyfried. He wrote a book called Cancer is a Metabolic Disease. And they discovered with cancer, same thing. It's this forced cycling that actually works and creates bad cells not to adapt. So anyways, that, but I mean, with what you're saying really goes with what we're talking about here, because it doesn't matter where you are in that process, getting addicted in binge eating is going to ruin it. So.
Well, yeah. And so what I'm teaching would help people to stick with the instructions that you're giving them. Give them that, because I would imagine you run into people who say, well, doc, I really believe you and I want to follow this, but it's just a little bit too hard to stay with.
Absolutely.
This would give people more power to do that.
Yeah. We all deal with it. I mean, all of our doctors, we all deal with people who really have good intentions, but they fall into their wicked ways, if you will. Right. And
yeah.
So, I mean, having a strategy, for them, this show becomes really important. Matter of fact, so important, the strategy. I want you to bring it again with a different scenario in a different direction. People need to hear things several times to get it. So I know our listeners right now are going, okay, I kind of get it. Okay, but bring it another way so they get it. Let's give them another strategy, or the same strategy a different way.
Well, the way that people get this best is to think about their single worst food trigger or behavior. There's a really bad echo on my side for some reason, all of a sudden.
Maybe turn down your volume a little bit.
Turn down my volume.
I'll turn mine down.
Okay. Yeah, that's better. Am I too low?
Nope.
Okay. So if people could think about one food or one eating behavior, some people it's eating in the car or eating in front of the TV. If there was one thing that they wanted to change that would make a world of difference. And I know that there's this voice inside of them that says, you can't do that. But if you ignore that voice for the moment and imagine, what if you got that out of your life? Whatever that means to you. Maybe it's only eating on the weekends, maybe it's only at social events. But what if you got that out of your life entirely? Imagine what would be different in a year, and think about how your weight might change, how your health might change, how your confidence might change. What about your thinking? Would you be, like I told you, I was much too obsessed with food early on. Would you be thinking less about it? Would you be more likely to be present with your spouse and your kids? Would you be more likely to take on more work projects, do more fun things outside? Really flesh out the entirety of what your life will be like in a year if you could only follow this one rule. And what that does is that really anchors you more in the upper brain, because what your pig is going to be telling you, or your lizard, or your troll, or your BITCH, as a lot of women like to call it, they're going to be telling you that, oh, you can't do that. You're going to feel too deprived. That's awful. But it doesn't tell you that there are two types of deprivation. The second type of deprivation is what you're depriving yourself of by continuing to indulge. And it's that whole future that you just laid out for yourself. So that's when I find people really get it, is when they think of the single worst problem they have, and they allow themselves to imagine that they really could be rid of it, even though there's this voice in their head going on and on and on that says you can't. And then what are you going to deprive yourself of if you don't fix this? Okay, and now let's listen to that voice really carefully. What are all the different reasons that this voice says that you can't? And let's challenge those reasons. Let's see what's going to be necessary to ignore those reasons. And that's how I take people through and get them to get it on a more gut level than all the theory and intellectual stuff we talked about today.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so it's really, like you said, I mean, it's caging the animal. It's really just taking control of it. When you go through that process, you're controlling it. And I think the way the human brain works, if we feel that we have control, we will be successful. If we feel that the beast has us, then we feel like we're going to lose.
Yep.
I mean, so you're basically giving them reins. If you have reins, you're going to be able to, ultimately be successful.
And the key to those reins is the language that you use.
Yeah.
And it has to do with purging all this sense of doubt and powerlessness. So what I'll typically ask people, if they say, well, I will never eat cookies again except for the weekends, I'll say, well, how confident are you? And they'll say, well, 20%. Well, where's the other 80% coming from? And then they've got a whole list of reasons. Well, Christmas is this weekend, or it's New Year's, and I screwed up last New Year's, and I'm going out with my girlfriend this week, and she makes these great cookies, and I don't want to offend her. It's a long, long list of reasons. And then so we go through those reasons, and we say, well, how can you handle this situation? How can you handle that situation? How confident are you now? And then they'll say something, I'm actually about 60% confident. So how come not 100%? And I'll come up with more reasons. Eventually they get up towards 80 or 85%, and they can't give me any more reasons. And I explain to them that that's because your pig is always going to be lurking in the background. You can't cut this part of you out of the brain. It's a part that you live on top of. And so there's always going to be a sense of doubt. And what you want to learn to do in this game is assign that doubt to your pig. And so the way that you do with language, you should say, I'm 100% confident, but my pig has other ideas. And the moment that you're willing to do that, it's not going to feel 100% confident, but you can declare yourself 100% confident. The moment you realize that, and you realize that all of the doubt and insecurity is coming from your pig, you've inserted an algorithm into your brain that will keep pulling apart you and your pig, and you'll hear your pig better and better and better. So I'm 100% confident that I will never binge again, but my pig has other ideas.
Yeah, I mean, and part of that too is part of that even identifying when you ask them those questions. I mean, really, they've already planned to fail. I mean, well, when I go to my girlfriend's, okay, they already know that that's going to be a failure. So basically, you're targeting. Here's where you just planned on failing. It's like until you get them to 100%, you're almost going ahead of them and giving them victory. Where else are you going to fail? Oh, I fail here. Well, now you have victory.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Yeah, that's exactly how you do it. Yeah, and you're changing the person's identity. When the person is willing to say, "I'm 100% confident," that's who they are. And every day we decide who we're going to be. And every day that we decide who we're going to be and we act in concert with it, we're a little more confident that that's who we are. So this is really a game of character. It's really a game of character building. But it all starts with, I'm 100% confident and my pig has other ideas.
Right.
It all starts with that separation.
All right, Meredith, where was your pig? Meredith's successful, man. She's disciplined, but she wasn't, obviously.
Yeah, well, that's funny. And I have some other things too, but well, yeah, just to share personally too, I definitely for many years struggled with my weight and overeating and dieting, and it's better now for sure. But I still don't feel 100% fixed. It was just, it's just been Christmas, and I definitely had some binges on cheese and chocolate in particular. And it was really interesting earlier in the episode how you shared some of the specific correlations between specific foods we crave and binge on, and then the emotional kind of components to them. I think you had said that chocolate, can be connected to
Loneliness.
needed for love and loneliness. So it's really interesting. So I definitely feel like I've made massive strides towards that. And I don't binge much anymore, but I've also created an environment where I'm set up to succeed. I don't keep junk in my house and my cupboards. It's not even there at all. Another component that I've really worked on that's really helped me is not just what I eat, but how I eat it. And I wanted to ask you about that too, if you do coaching in that area. For me, I try not to be distracted when I eat. Sitting down, possibly even lighting a candle, playing music, but really honoring the food and paying attention to cues of satiety and fullness. So I'm not trying to not eat in the car, on the run, but just really focusing on food. So what about how can you speak to how we eat and how that can impact binging, overeating, satiety, things like that?
Well, all of the work in mindfulness is very accurate. And if you're not really present while you're eating, then you're not really going to have the experience of being nourished and supported and loved by the food. And so the more that you can create situations in your life where your food intake is in a mindful and loving environment, the less you're going to crave more, the more you're going to be aware of whether you're full, whether you've had enough, when is enough enough. So I think that I did an interview with a guy from Cornell. I actually interviewed him. He does all those mindful eating studies. What's the name of his? I'm going to get that for you because I think your readers really like it. But he's really quantified most of what you're saying. And this is perfectly complementary with that because you can set up structures that support that. So I will always breathe before I begin eating. I will never eat in front of the TV. I won't eat in the car. I mean, you started to talk about it as you were describing what's worked for you. It's just kind of stepping back and memorializing in written form what it is that you believe and how could 10 people following you around all month know whether or not you were doing it or not. But everything you say, I couldn't disagree with anything. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Great.
Yeah.
And I just kind of wanted to follow up too with the conversation with diet variation and how that's been so helpful for so many people too. And it's adding in a carb day, possibly a protein load day, having some lower carb days, but it also adds in a fasting day. And how do you feel about fasting, Dr. Glenn? How does that fit into kind of the paradigm? Do you think that can be helpful? I know from a health standpoint, of course, Dr. Pompa and I feel that it can be extremely beneficial, but how does that work from your approach and for those who really struggle with?
From my personal study of nutrition, I do believe in it. And I do periodically go through a day or two of fasting myself. So I do believe in it. I don't recommend it for my clients. It depends upon how serious a problem they have. If I work with people who say, I eat until my gums bleed and, my entire life is sitting by the refrigerator and I can't leave the refrigerator, I'm sitting there with a chair and I want to kill myself, then this is not someone that I'm going to encourage to have a fasting day. Right?
I would agree.
Yeah. but I work with a lot of people like that who feel like binge eating is overtaking their whole life. And so I'm very cautious, and my general philosophy is, look, let's just not binge. Let's get a regular intake of food going. Worry about fasting and cleansing in 5 years or something like that when you've really got this thing totally under control. So it scares me for people who really struggle with binging or anorexia to go through fasting. Even though I know on a nutritional basis, it really gives the body a break and allows us to cleanse. And it's something that I personally do, but I'm very, very careful about that with people that struggle with that button in the brain that says, dislodge your jar and put everything into it. Yeah.
Right. And that makes sense. Just easing into it as well. It's, you can't always jump in fully with everything. And especially when you have such challenges and, those dealing with such extreme conditions with the overeating and the binging that, definitely slow and steady can win the race.
I mean, what would be close to a fast though would be a day full of berries and melons or something like that, wouldn't it? It's like something that's really quickly digested, but provides some calories so that you're not necessarily triggering the binge response. I'm asking, I'm not saying.
Yeah. Partial fast. I mean, partial fasts work well too. I mean, honestly, but I'm thinking even that could be a little for the person who binges. I mean, again, it's the person in front of you. You have to know that person, right? I mean, you know what I mean? Because even then that could be a little bingey for some people, who knows?
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Many different styles of fasting modifications. So, and that's why it's so important to work with a practitioner. If anyone's watching, really struggling with the binge eating, the overeating, you know, having that trained practitioner to guide you along the way is so priceless. So really important. And I'm just wondering, anyone who's watching, who's been struggling maybe for years or maybe a short period of time with overeating, binging, what are kind of some key tips and techniques that they can walk away with after this show, implementing, you know, really quickly into their life to see a difference?
Well, the most profound thing I could say is to really simplify the whole thing. That all you really need to do to never binge again is never binge again. It sounds crazy, but it's all you need to do. You need to draw these lines very clearly in the sand about what that means. You need to start listening for that crazy inner voice that talks you out of your best laid plans. You need to stop trying to love your inner wounded child and heal your inner wounded child to fix this problem. You can do all that to fix other problems. And determine that you're disgusted, get good and disgusted with that lizard brain part of you that keeps talking you out of your plans. And that's the most fundamental tip that I can give people, is to realize it's a lot more simple than you think it is. Catherine Hansen, who wrote Brain Over Binge, is a friend of mine, she puts it like this. She says, you just have to think of all those urges as neurological junk. It's a miswiring of the brain, and you would know about neuroplasticity, but basically it says whatever fires together wires together. And if you start dismissing those urges, then those urges will, you know, weaken over time. In plain English, we don't really crave those things that we know we're never going to have. If a prisoner has no hope, then the prisoner starts to calm down because there's no sense banging your head against the wall in the cage. So it's a real simplification, a switch of paradigm from loving your inner wounded child to caging a rabid animal. I've got all sorts of free resources on my site, if it's okay to say that when you give me the word. But today we've talked a lot about theory. I've recorded a lot of full sessions so you can hear how I actually implement this with people. I've set up a whole bunch of food plan templates so you can get a sense of the kind of rules that work for people and the rules that don't. It's all free. The book is free also, by the way. You can download it on
Yeah, give the resources.
It's all at neverbingeagain.com. If you go to neverbingeagain.com and you hit the big red free button and you sign up for the free reader bonuses, you'll get everything we just talked about, including the link to the free book, so that you can get a better sense of what we're talking about. And
perfect.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Neverbingeagain.com.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Look, I know you're going to get a lot of people going there because so many people that watch and listen to this show, you know, some degree, different for everybody, but to some degree struggle with this, right? I mean, it's part of it, no doubt.
It's a very empowering philosophy because it supports your independent thinking. It gets that negative part of you out of the way that says that you can't do this and you're powerless. And it gives you a new sense of hope that you haven't had before. Find one rule, play with one rule, see how that works. Listen to some of the sessions and see how they do it. And you're going to be very surprised as to what your brain can do that you didn't know it could do.
Yeah. Well, Dr. Glenn, thank you. I think you're really going to get a great response from our viewers. So thank you for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for helping me to reach more people.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Pompa. Thank you, Dr. Glenn. Such a message of empowerment for those of us who have struggled for so many years with these challenges, but to know that, you know, with the right tools that, you know, this doesn't have to be a challenge that we live with forever and that we don't have to have this food prison, as you kind of called it. I think that's a really powerful message. There's hope.
Yep. Very much so. Thank you.
All right, guys. Thanks
Bye.
so much, Dr. Glenn. Thanks, Dr. Pompa. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.